I'm ranking the highest owned defenders and goalkeepers in FPL and letting you know where I rank them for your game week 1 squads. So let's jump straight into things. Welcome to the video. Of course, we're ranking the highest owned goalkeepers and defenders in FPL right now. If you are new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. I make FPL videos to help you guys at home, and just by clicking that small red button, you help me out a massive amount. The like goal for today's video is 20 likes. But with ranking these players right now, of course, there is a bit of a conversation that FPL is just going to change in 2 weeks' time. Why are you even bothering? Well, everyone's changing their drafts and structures and chip strategies within these coming weeks, and sort of having an idea and making these new drafts allows you to explore new players and have an understanding of overall FPL player bases a little bit better. So I think it's quite valuable to be watching today's video, and of course, if our opinions do change, we can just amend these types of lists. So starting with the goalkeepers here, I've got them in sort of ownership order. We've got Kelleher. Now, Kelleher for me, I think is a great 4.5 to start the season with. The only doubts I have about Brentford are the fact that Mbeumo, potentially Johan Wissa will be leaving the club, which maybe leaves their forward line a little bit, how do I say, open. Their ball retention is probably going to be a little bit less than normal. Maybe that affects how the defence deals with open play. I'm not too sure right now. There's not a lot of pre-season data to really go from. We'll put him in B tier for now and have a little look at his fixture list just to give you an idea of sort of how many games you're expected to play Kelleher at the start of the season, because you're probably going to pair him with another goalkeeper unless you're really putting a lot of value into your team. So Forest, Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea, Fulham. I don't think they're too bad. Of course, Sunderland, Forest, Fulham in there are pretty decent. I think I'll keep him at B. I think a B tier keeper, possibly moving up to A because of his price. I think that's decent. Next up, we have David Raya. With David Raya, of course, you're getting an Arsenal keeper, which is always fantastic. The issue is with David Raya, the fixtures aren't great. Any other time, you'd be like, yeah, let's pick David Raya because Arsenal defence is the best defence to own in FPL. It is a fact, and they've proved it for a couple of seasons now. I can't put him in S tier because of the fixtures. I can't. Although, yeah, I think I've got to put him in A. I think I have to, because those fixtures aren't great. They really aren't. But Arsenal can defend against any team and come away with a clean sheet. I still think with those difficult fixtures, you're massively reducing the chance of a clean sheet and not going to get much access to save points, in all honesty, are we? So I think he's maybe slightly better to start the season with than Kelleher, because you can really play him long term and not really think about it too much, whereas Kelleher, you might be thinking, well, I can't really play him in this fixture, I can't play him in this fixture. So for me, Raya is a little bit better at the moment. You've got Sells. We'll bring up Sells' fixture list as well. Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, of course, had a great season last season, I believe coming second in the overall goalkeeper points total. Look, Sunderland, Burnley, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Brentford are all good. It's only Arsenal that I don't really particularly like there. And I think defensively, Forest aren't massively affected by the outgoing of like someone like Alanga and things like that. So I do think they'll still be defensively quite strong. I do think I slightly prefer Nottingham Forest defenders over Sells, though. I like Milenkovic, I like Murillo, I like Nico Williams a lot. So for that, I would put him sort of in the top end of A, like there, just ahead of David Raya. We'll do that to indicate sort of where on that particular letter they rank. I'll try my best to do that through the video. We've got Sanchez next, Chelsea goalkeeper, very, very popular, of course. Again, a £5 million keeper, so not a bad price tag. We'll click on his fixtures to show you how good the Chelsea fixtures actually are. We've got Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Brentford, Manchester United, and Brighton in the first 6. And then even past that, we see really, really great fixtures for a good stretch of the season, possibly all the way up to sort of game week 16. You can kind of just forget about them and play them. So I hate to say it, I think Robert Sanchez is an S-tier goalkeeper to start the season with. And you may be thinking, well, Chelsea defence is bad. Why the hell would you do that? He makes mistakes. If we look at sort of the expected goals conceded last season, apologies, by the way, for the reflection of my glasses for this really bright screen. It looks like I have holes in my eyes. I promise I don't. But Chelsea there, ranking very highly in terms of expected goals conceded. One of the best in the league. So overall, a good defence. So for me, Sanchez is great, and I think he's looked better, especially in the Club World Cup. So, yeah, I think for those 4 keepers, that's where I'd have them. Jordan Pickford, I think it's a really easy one. I think it's a B-tier keeper. I think, we're expecting Everton to maybe be a little bit better, but I don't think they'll be, crazy good to the fact that they're going to break the game. I think it's just a good keeper to start with. So those are the keepers ranked. Let's move on to the defenders now. We're here with the defenders, and of course they're lined up in ownership order, and it's really surprising that Wan-Bissaka is first here, but looking at his fixtures and his price, it kind of does make sense. Sunderland to open the season with. I am a Sunderland fan, so maybe I'm kind of wrong about this, but I do think West Ham concede in this fixture. Sunderland at home, their first time in the Premier League in years. For me, it doesn't scream clean sheet, but still a good fixture, potential of attack and returns. The fixtures after are okay, some of them pretty tricky, but if we're talking about defensive contribution points, it could be quite good. I do think he's a really, really good defender to start the season with. I really do, so I will give him A tier. I will. We've got Frimpong next. Frimpong's one of those ones where the fixtures aren't great. We don't know if he's a definite starter for Liverpool to start the season with, but in game weeks 4 and 5, if we can kind of understand he's playing every single game, he could be a really good pick. But for now, I'm tempted to put him in C because we just don't know right now. We don't have the information to back it. So, yeah, I think that's where I'd put him. Aït-Nouri, of course, playing for City now. He is wearing a Wolves top and has... just doesn't look right. But he plays Wolves' first game of the season. Spurs, Brighton, Manchester United, Arsenal, Burnley, Brentford, Everton. Some good fixtures. I think City players are kind of underrated because we're looking at them as Pep Roulette. Oh my God, don't pick. But if you pick the nailed assets, it does make sense. But Aït-Nouri ain't nailed. He just isn't. So I think I would put him in C. But I think he is going to be better to start the season with than Frimpong, so maybe I do this. Or in fact, I'll do that. I think that suits me a little bit better, actually. Moving Frimpong down and moving Aït-Nouri into C tier. We've got Gabriel next. Now, Gabriel has had a few issues with pre-season, and I don't think he's necessarily ready yet, right now, to start the season. The fixtures aren't quite good apart from Leeds in game week 2. Then sort of past that hard block, you come into some good ones. So to start the season, I actually think Gabriel's D tier right now. We don't know if he's even going to start. The fixtures aren't too great. It's only game week 2 that you really want to be sort of committing to that Gabriel, because if you really think about it, United away at Old Trafford, are they going to probably score against Arsenal? You would think so. Leeds at home, that screams a clean sheet. Liverpool away, I wouldn't say there's a clean sheet there. Forest at home, I think it's a really good fixture. City at home, although it's City, it's a home fixture, and home fixtures are normally a little bit better for Arsenal in terms of clean sheets. So, yeah, we could go on through the list there, but I do think to start the season right now, Gabriel isn't the guy to be picking because we just don't think he's ready. We've got Konsa. Now, Konsa's mainly used as a rotational asset for some of the bigger boys, and you can kind of understand why. We're starting the season with Newcastle, not the greatest fixture, but it is at home. We've got Brentford, Palace, Everton, Sunderland, Fulham, Burnley. Overall, really good fixtures past that game week 1, and you can kind of throw them in here and there when you need them. And to be honest, he probably could start for you every single game week. For me, I think Konsa's, I would say B tier, and we'll kind of quickly show you per 90 data for Konsa in terms of defensive contribution points. He's only getting sort of 5.3 defensive actions per game, so really low. He barely hits sort of the threshold for the defensive contribution points, those extra 2 points. So that's why I'd probably put him in B tier, because he isn't quite good at that. Virgil van Dijk, I mean, Liverpool asset, not sort of a great start of the season, but It's 6 million, having sort of access to maybe defensive contribution points and a really good chance at a clean sheet because the Liverpool defence is so strong, just like Arsenal. I think he probably goes in A tier. The reason I don't think I'll put him in sort of S tier is because of the Newcastle away and the Arsenal at home fixture. I think those two fixtures maybe let him down just a little bit to start the season with, but overall as a long-term pick, I think Virgil van Dijk's great, and I think he definitely suits that A tier price tag ranking. You've got Cucurella as well. Now Cucurella for me, I think is fantastic. If he was 5.5 million, I would have him in every draft. But he's 6 million. 6 million is a lot. I think he is probably worth 6 million because of the fixtures, as we look with Sanchez, are fantastic. But this new signing that Chelsea have got in Hato, I believe he's called, he plays in Cucurella's position. We know Cucurella is an absolute monster of a player, and I think he will come away with a lot of FPL points this season. I think A tier just suits him because if that Hato comes in occasionally and takes sort of starts away from Cucurella, we can't really be picking him at 6 million. So A tier suits him right now, I would say. That's where I would maybe put him. We've got Aina next. I think out of all of the Forest defenders, including Sells, he's the one I'd least likely go for right now. So I'm going to put him in C tier. I think players like Murillo, Milenkovic and Nico Williams rank anywhere from A to S, depending on who you pick at what price tag. But yeah, I think Aina I would put in C. You've still got decent fixtures, okay chance at defensive contribution points. I just think other assets are maybe slightly better from Forest. Guardiola's an interesting one because in terms of sort of defensive contribution points, City assets are probably never going to be quite good because they're going to dominate the ball, they're going to keep the ball, therefore there's not a lot of chance to make defensive actions to get those points up. I do think in terms of City assets though, him and Haaland are probably the most nailed you're going to get. Especially, we used to think Edison was nailed and then Ortega would come in. Now Trafford's there. Maybe it's going to happen even more than it did with Ortega. So for me, Guardiola is the most nailed alongside Haaland in that City squad. So because there's no defensive contribution points, you'd be tempted to put him in B. But I think A tier really does suit him. I think he's really great at that 6 million price tag. Similar to Virgil. Clean sheets are going to be at a high percentage chance each and every game week. I think A tier, I'm happy with A tier. I think what I would do is I'd move Wan-Bissaka down to B tier. And I think that's just because maybe other 4.5s are slightly better. So we'll keep him there for now. Maybe I'll change my mind. But Van de Ven next. Now, Van de Ven is one of those guys that hasn't left my team in like every draft. I've had him in every single one of my drafts. The fixtures are fantastic for ages, for absolutely ages. Maybe up until game week 9/10. 4.5 million. Spurs had an awful season last season. Therefore, FPL have massively underpriced a lot of them, in my opinion. So Van de Ven for me, under Thomas Frank, actually, right now for me is S tier. I haven't made a draft without him. I think we look at the fixtures, great, unbelievable fixtures. I think Spurs have some of the best fixtures to start the season with. So maybe having one or two Spurs assets in your game week 1 team is going to be class. 4.5 price tag, it's great. If he was 4 million, everybody would have him, but he's only 0.5 more than that. I think 4.5 is an absolute steal for Van de Ven. We understand that his defensive contribution points, we can't really look at last season's because completely different manager, completely different play style. We expect Thomas Frank to play similar to how he played with his Brentford players, and with him doing that, I think you're going to get players like Romero and Van de Ven who benefit massively, who absolutely benefit massively in terms of defensive actions. I do expect Spurs to have quite a lot of the ball at times, but if we look at how Brentford played, maybe that's going to be sort of less of the ball than a team like City and Liverpool and Arsenal. So for me, right now, Van de Ven is S tier. In my opinion, is S tier. Now, you will come back at me and say, well, Spurs are crap last season. Why the hell are you even putting them in this list? Look, for me, you can look past it. I enjoy looking at last season's data in terms of sort of consistency points. You know, you've got Liverpool players you can look at because Arne Slot was there, but his system's going to change this season, so maybe data points aren't sort of the most reliable thing to look at. It's the same thing with Spurs. Postecoglou's system, completely different to Thomas Frank. Maybe we can't really look at the data that much, but for me, Van der Ven and Romero as a pairing are some of the best defensive partnerships in the season, despite last season. So, yeah, I'll stop trying to force Van der Ven on you, but for me personally, he's an S tier defender right now in FPL. At the end of my videos, I always give you a massive thank you for supporting the FPL Mugs YouTube channel. Of course, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you drop a like, and if you aren't yet subscribed just yet, go ahead and click that little red button for future FPL videos and deadline streams. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.